Hey everyone, Nyx here, and welcome back to Housecraft. Previously, we made a little cave hideaway for my Banshee Vice and talked about her history, but today we're switching things up from this very dreary undead aesthetic. As you can see, I'm on my Blood Elf Paladin, because we're going to go out and into the Blood Elf section of the house and get to work on a nice chapel for her. Because the front of the house has just been these empty rooms for too long, and my guild is starting to roleplay in our houses, and I want them to actually have something nice to see when they walk in, rather than this awkward scaffolding. So we're going to get to that today. I'm going to start off by laying down some basic structure, putting in some proper stairs, and I'll be back with you in a minute. So just like last time, as we get to building here, I'm going to talk about Cypher's backstory. Cypher is my Blood Elf Paladin, and initially she was just meant to be an NPC. She's Vice's sister, and she was more of a background character to add some contrast to Vice's life of what could have been. But through role-playing her and the way the story developed, she actually ended up developing into a character that I wanted to play more primarily. So let's start at the beginning. Cypher was born a few years before the Third War, and she was born in similar conditions to Vice. Her parents were both hunters who lived off the land, but unlike Vice, about a few years after she was born, the Third War happened, and her parents, shaken by the unfathomable loss to their people that they witnessed, decided to instead lend their aid to help in the efforts of rebuilding the Blood Elf society. They did what they could to help repair things, and in the aftermath, they turned their skills with bows and weapons to forming a archery shop, where they made fine bows for organizations like the Far Striders and weapons for the Blood Knights. Okay, so I've been at it for a couple of hours now, and I am really happy with how it's coming together. I've based it both off of real-life churches that have this sort of center aisle with the side aisles separated by pillars before they branch out into the central worship area, but it's also been inspired by the Paladin Order Hall, which is of course itself inspired by real-life churches, just to get that Warcraft flair. I had recently been reading the novel Blood Ties, which has some beautiful descriptions of wielding the light and the Paladin Order Hall within it, and that is what really inspired me to sort of make this build and start it and do it in this way. Of course, all of it is centered around the Lightwell from the Midnight Epic Edition. My sort of headcanon idea for this is that there's a convergence of ley lines upon this particular isle, and this Lightwell was constructed in order to draw from it, much in the same way that Night Elves do with their Moonwells, just with that Blood Elf arcane flair, perhaps a little bit of the Sunwell's energy poured into it as well, to make this perfect little central worship area that can then be used for anyone preaching. They can stand upon this lip and speak out to the rest of the church. These plinths, as you can see, already have objects on them. These are going to be reliquaries. Another feature of the church is people pass through, they pass by holy relics and sort of receive their blessing from them. Meanwhile, these side rooms, this one, cramped as it is going to be Cypher's. She is just a recruit after all, though she is getting the benefits from the matron of getting to live on this sort of property. Whereas this one I'm thinking is going to be a forge. I have this big empty space. This is going to be future horde rooms, which I'm going to have to find out a way to hide. Way in the future though, Blood Elf and undead stuff's getting the focus first. But it was important that I had them in right now so that I could know how I need to hide them ahead of time. And then we have more custom stairs. These are just using the Belemeth pillars and a rug, and they are exceedingly steep. No real stairs would be this steep, but they're fully functional. You can go up, and they need to be this steep because they come right to this door to this horde space. And also I want their footprint to be small enough that this whole room, which is going to be sort of the matron's office and private chambers, has enough room to build all of that within it. But that's the progress so far. I think the structure looks really great. It's perfectly capturing the energy I want. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start filling out some detail work. I need more relics. I need some lighting. But that lighting in particular is going to require some professions, so I'm going to get on that and I'll get back to you once we've got some details in. Now, Cypher grew up in this time of great struggle for the Blood Elves, seeing all of her people trying to just survive day by day, struggling with their mana addiction, but it was also a time of heroes. She witnessed figures like Lady Liadrin and Lorthma Theron rise from the ashes to help form new orders and set their people on a brighter path. And this deeply inspired Cypher. She knew that one day she would try to become one of those heroes. But her parents, who were overprotective of her given what they'd witnessed and their experience with their first child, did not want her to do so. They instead set her to working on the family business, crafting at bows, but Cypher would sneak off at night and practice with the staff, hoping that one day she'd have the chance to become a hero. So it turns out these sconces, which I was wanting to use for their sun theme, actually don't give off any light at all. So we're gonna have to think of something else for our lighting solution. When she reached adulthood, her parents finally decided to let her spread her wings a little. They just had their second child, a girl by the name of Karia, and figured that it was time that Cypher started to venture beyond the roost. They allowed her to study at the Silvermoon University, learning magic, which was a far cry from the more martial disciplines that Cypher was interested in, but she'd take it, only to be disappointed when she found that she was being forced into an enchantment program. But she kept at it because she's ever a determined individual, and she knew that if she just showed her magical aptitude, then she would be able to prove herself and perhaps enter into a combat path instead. An opportunity of a different sort would arise. Erica Dustbinder, at the time the love of Vice, would visit Silvermoon in order to find out history about Vice's family, who Vice believed had perished in the Second War because that's the lie that her parents had spun. Instead, he'd encounter them very much living, with Cypher there, and after some pleasant exchanges, unveil the truth of what had happened to their wayward daughter, a truth that Cypher had kept from her for all those years. The solution I ultimately ended up doing for the lighting was these floating light wells from the Priest Order Hall, and I actually think that they worked out a lot better than the original candle idea I had in mind, was not only do they cast a lot more light than any of the candles, but they have a distinctly elven feel. Blood elves love using their arcane magic to levitate things around. It also adds some much needed asymmetry to what was otherwise a very symmetrical build. Although I did find a use for the sconce that I made, which was very expensive gold-wise, to sort of serve as a centerpiece for the shrine, which I think looks really good. I also put in these ochre windows all throughout. They work really well as sort of stand-in stained glass windows, and another great thing is they cast orange light, which is perfect for this very Sunwell Blood Elf feel. I'm particularly proud of this almost sun-like symbol for this big stained glass centerpiece over here, and I've hidden a Librum from the Paladin Order Hall, which shines a beam of light behind it to really make it feel like when you're standing here kneeling before this well of arcane and light power, that you are being blessed by the light. These windows don't really make a whole lot of sense technically, since right behind them is a wall, and at this stage in the build we're meant to be more underground, so this one especially doesn't make sense. But the nice thing about this being an elven temple is that they use a lot of magic and a lot of enchantments for stuff, so I figured that's what it's also like. We also do see in the Paladin Order Hall in WoW that even though that is underground, there's light shining through, so I think it really works for this to be such a holy place that even underground, even where it doesn't make sense, the light of the Sunwell is present. Of course, simple benches and pews to surround it, some nice bushes to sort of add some greenery to this place. And we ended up replacing these pedestals with pedestals from the Priest Order Hall. They have a bit more interest in them going on, and they're also lower budget, which is nice. We've just got various holy looking relics sitting on top of them. So I think this has all come together really well, captured the exact sort of aesthetic that I wanted. And now we look towards the forge in here and Cypher's room in here. So I'm going to get working on those. This revelation further set Cypher against what had been her controlling parents and are now proven to be deceptive ones. She decided that no more would she allow her path to be determined by them, and with Elricar Dustbinder's help, she was able to find a place as a Blood Knight acolyte, serving his still living family in training. With further help from the matron's sponsorship, she was able to acquire arms and armor to assist in her training. While she hopes to rekindle her connection with her parents one day, for now she is content to train as a Blood Knight, following that path that she ever wished to, in order to defend and uplift her people. As the void descends upon Silvermoon and Midnight, it remains to be seen whether Cypher will be able to rise up and defend her people as she had wished to as a child during those years of strife, or whether the weight of the crushing darkness will crush her in turn. The room for Cypher done here. It's pretty simple, but given the space, it kind of has to be simple. To fill up the doorway here that would lead to the Forsaken area, I made it into a sort of recessed closet bookshelf. Because this place is so small, I'm trying to be as economical as possible, and I feel like that's a pretty good way of doing it. We've got this desk for her studies, which she is quite studious. A few little trinkets and toys, because much like Vice, she is a fan of the cute things, although in a very different way. We've got these curtains acting as a privacy screen to the actual back bedroom here. We've got this nice elven bed. It's pretty extravagant, but it fits with the whole general theme again, more toys. Chest to keep some of her more valuable possessions, and then a nice little bath, and of course a poster of an elven hero because Cypher is very inspired by the heroes of her people, and so she would naturally want to go to sleep looking up at a painting of one of them. Even if she's not really the most paladin-y sort, but that kind of has an appeal to Cypher as well. I know there's elven baths in the files, but I don't think we're getting those until midnight, so this will have to do now. It is a very awkward, like, filled up space, but it really, I think, gives that very basic, tiny, cramped apartment feel, which is exactly what I'm going for. She's not exactly from a wealthy family. She's being sponsored to study as a paladin, so she gets essentially the necessities right next to where she'd be training and doesn't get any extravagant big room. But with that side of the temple done, it's time to take it over to this one and work on what I'm thinking will be a forge area, but honestly, this space is currently pretty up in the air of what it'll ultimately be, so we'll see how things actually play out. As far as personality goes, Cypher is hopeful, determined, and kind. Though she seeks to be a hero for her people, it's not out of any sense of ego. She genuinely has a desire to protect people, born from the fact that when she was a youth, she had to witness so much suffering while being completely powerless to do anything to stop it. She's the sort who, if she sees someone in trouble, her body will move before her mind has any time to think, and the sort of person who will see someone struggling and reach out to heal their heart before she thinks of turning her blade against them. Though she is very much a typical paragon, she is not without her flaws. She's impetuous, she can be at times very brash and standoffish, and she struggles with being told no. She wants to reach her goals right now, and she has little time for the barriers that are put in her way, even if they're put there for good reason. All in all, of all my characters, she's the most truly heroic, which also means she has the farthest to fall, but hopefully she's able to keep her chin up, maintain her faith in the light, and stand strong against the void and midnight. So it turns out that this place was way too small to fit a forge. I tried the best I could. There just wasn't a way to make it work, so instead, it's now just an armory of sorts. We've again used this recessed cabinet technique with the door, this time with a more rustic cabinet since I expect the armory is going to lack some of the elegance of the rest of the place. Just various weapon caches around, a sort of grindstone for sharpening and repairing things, but my favorite detail is this little hidden area back here. You can click onto a seat to get into. It takes you to this nice little romantic hidden picnic area, because I feel like all good religious cloisters in a fantasy setting are not complete without a nice romantic hideaway for some of the people training there to get away and enjoy a private moment together. Of course, you can get back out with the stool over here. Fun bit of interactive design as well. Very basic room, but the whole aesthetic came together really well, and it fits the whole temple vibe going on. And with that, let's do one final walkthrough of this elven temple. Of course, this was based on real church designs with this central walkway and these side paths. Relics on display for people to walk by and feel blessed by as part of the reliquary. Our guild's lore is that this island was established with the help of the reliquary, and so it even better fits that there would be relics about. Then the shrine with these beams of light coming down from this grand sun-style stained glass window. A bunch of light sunwells floating around as well to further illuminate the place and add that elven flair, and of course seats for the people using this establishment. Back towards the entrance, we've got custom stairs leading up to a second floor, which will eventually be filled. And then on the side, we've got a room for Cypher, cramped and pretty simplistic, but a nice little apartment for her, first time really being independent, some toys scattered about, and then a private back area for her to sleep and wash up. And then on the other side, a rustic armory for all the needs of the paladins and priests in this space to repair their weapons, gather new armor and arms, and if they want a private moment with someone, sneak into this little back picnic area and enjoy a nice reprieve from the place. But I am really happy with how this all came together, especially this central hallway. I had a vision in mind, and though I had to change some things, it otherwise came together exactly how I was hoping for, and I'm really looking forward to using this place for roleplay and the like with that with Cypher and my other characters in the future. But that will be all for now, and in the next time we're going to finally go to the actual main entrance room that is now looking very dark and sparse, and fill it out with a sort of elven tavern entrance. The reliquary plays a major role in this island in our guild's lore, and so I'm thinking this will be a sort of place for them to come and rest and relax, and for people's other elven characters to enjoy as well before they venture deeper into the back temple here, or simply enjoy their drinks. But that'll have to wait for next time. For now, I've been Nyx, and I'll see you then.